Hi, welcome to Inside the Author. I'm Jenna Green, author of the Imagine series and the dystopian thriller Reborn. You may know me from my podcast Quillen Inc. with co-host Miranda O. That airs on Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. But this show, Inside the Author, is dedicated to Lethbridge artists, Lethbridge authors. And last time, I guess it was about over a month ago, we had Mandy Michelle, who I knew since junior high school. Now, our guest today, Emily Kundrick, I'm going to read her bio and then I'm going to ask her a question. And I can't remember the answer, so I'm hoping she will, on how long we've known each other. But Emily has been writing since she was very young and started taking it serious just after high school. She wrote a few novels and ended up querying about 4 of them. If you don't know what querying is, we'll talk about that during the show. And through all that process, that querying, that writing, and the mentorship and contest programs that she was part of, she learned a lot. And now she has an agent, Rebecca Strauss. And that journey continued on. And now she has a debut novel, The Golden Flame. So Emily is right here from the Canadian prairies, right here in Lethbridge. This is why she wouldn't be on the show. She writes young adult science, fiction, and fantasy, when not wordsmithing. Oh, love that description. She likes walking her overexcitable dog, drinking far too much tea. I'm with you, sister. And crocheting things she no longer has a space to store. I already mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again and again and again and again on this show. But her debut novel is This Golden Flame. So hi, Emily. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So my question is how long we've known each other. Was I your brownie leader or was I your sister's?
I want to say you were mine. I think you were mine.
I think so. It might have been that I was both.
Yes.
Because your sister's younger. Sarah's younger.
Sarah's older.
Okay, there's 3 of you, isn't there? Okay, yes. Sarah, there's a lot of you. Sarah's older. Oh, maybe I was all of your leader. I don't know. But that's how long we go back, that I was your brownie leader. And you would have been, what, 6, 7 years old?
Do you remember which owl you were?
I'm assuming I was Snowy Owl. I was Snowy Owl for a long time. This isn't going to make a lot of sense to anyone that's not in Girl Guides, but yeah. Now, if I was your brownie leader when you were like 6 or 7 years old, and I was older, you can't say how old you are now because then people will start to figure out how old I am. So we're not going to mention that.
Keep That's it on off the table.
Speaking of Girl Guides, my little girl is going to be 5 soon, so she can be a spark.
Aww, I love
very
Sparks.
Excited that she can join Girl Guides. My husband could not care less. It's a big deal for me.
Oh.
But less about me and more about you. So this Golden Flame debut novel, do you have it with you? Can you hold it up?
I do. I can grab it. There it is.
I'll hold it nice and still. Ooh. Nice cover. That looks thick. Nice. Yes. Mine's a lot thinner. I don't write that many words. Yeah. Oh. And you get a hardcover? No one ever does hardcovers for my books. So what's it about? I know. What's it about?
So it's set in this roughly ancient Greek-inspired world. And so there was these scriptoriums, and they're trying to reanimate the automatons, which were once this ancient army, but that have now gone still. And so the main character, Karis, walks at an automaton, but all she really wants to do is escape and find her brother who was taken away from her. So she actually finds a human-sized automaton and wakes him up, and she discovers that he can think and talk and feel and do all these things that she was always told automatons couldn't do. So rather than hand him over to the scriptorium, they both escape together to find her brother and to find out why the scriptorium is so interested in the automaton.
Very nice. So sci-fi and fantasy kind of mixed together, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like an AI story, except with automatons and fantasy.
Nice. A lot of writers that write like historical, they have to do a lot of research. And I write fantasy, no sci-fi. That's smart. You must be smarter than I am. But I still have to do some research, right? Because I need to know, what a castle physically looks like, and I'll do some research to figure out different cultures and how I can adapt them and change them into my stories. I'm assuming with sci-fi and fantasy, you do have to do some research here. Am I
Yeah, and
right?
especially since this was, again, I wanted to sort of have that ancient Greece feel. I did do research, of course, on ancient Greece, but also because it's a fantasy, I, of course, was allowed to take some leeway. So, like scriptoriums, I think those are actually ancient, like England things, not
Wait,
Greece
that's a real
things.
thing?
Scriptoriums, yeah, that was an
Never heard
old
that word
thing.
before. I thought you
Yeah,
made it up. Oh,
yeah. So I
what's a
definitely took some liberties.
what's a scriptorium then?
I want to say it was where they transposed books, but I'm not 100% sure.
That would make
In
sense.
my world, I literally just took the word. I didn't take
Oh.
what the actual thing was, so I just liked how the word sounded. And the magic system is called the script, so it made sense in the context of my world, but
That's
I
the
don't think they
joy.
actually had anything like scriptoriums in it.
That's the joy of writing. We just take something, a word, and we're
Yeah,
like, oh, that's a neat word. I'm going to use it. I don't have to use it for what it's really for. I'll just use it for what I want or tweak things. Yeah. Interesting. You did a whole course on Greece?
well, I just did some research.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yes. But I've always just been fascinated, so I walk at a library. I grabbed a bunch of books, just started reading.
Interesting. Very nice. And so let's talk about the characters a little bit. I know you just mentioned them, but um, people that are interested in books and authors, they often want to know about how authors develop their characters and things like that. And if you're looking for a book to read, a lot of the time you want to know about the main character. So let's just go back a little bit. What was the main character's name again?
Chaos,
Karis. Okay.
that is a
And
Greek name. Yeah,
well, there you go. It's all tying together.
time to come together.
Sewing
Yeah, so
together.
it was really the two main characters. It is dual point of view. So Chaos is the one point of view, and Alex is the automaton. He's the other. And yeah, they came very early in the process. Them and sort of the idea of kind of the scriptoriums and the automatons were what came first. So yeah, Karis she's basically trapped on this island. She's an orphan, so she was picked up off the streets and basically just dumped on this island to help the script masters study the automatons.
Oh,
And her brother was also taken with her, but they viewed him as a troublemaker, so he was sent away right at the beginning. So what she really wants to do is to get off this island so that she can try to find her brother again. And then, of course, Alex is an automaton. He's been asleep for a very long time when Karis wakes him up. So he's really lost in this world that he doesn't really belong to anymore. And he kind of has to figure out what sent him to sleep, what happened right before he went to sleep, because he sort of has a gap in his memory where he just can't remember what happened. And so, and he also, of course, had one of the script masters was his father, and he, of course, he's dead now because he's been asleep for so long, but he sort of wants to find out what happened.
and this story, did it just come from your love of, well, that's a lot of things, I guess. Did it just come to you one day? The idea?
It definitely came in like fragments and pieces. I kind of knew I did want to base something in ancient Greece, and then I had the idea that I wanted a character who wasn't human and sort of his search for what happened to him. And then Karis came, and this idea that she also was searching for a brother, that she was also sort of lost and looking for something, and just the ways that they'd, come together and have to work together and find friendship. Aw.
Aw. That's a nice theme, though, of lost and looking for something. We can all connect on that.
Yes.
I'm sure everyone in the world is wanting, seeking something, happiness, a steady diet, a better job, whatever it is. That's something very unifying. And I find with books, if you can find a theme, a thread that someone can relate to on any level, it really draws you into the book. I am not an automaton, but I can relate to wanting information. And I'm not lost in an island. I don't have a brother, but I can relate to seeking something, wanting that. Yeah, very interesting. And it sounds like the book's kind of starts off with some action. Just that's a good way to, especially because this is YA, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the one thing that a lot of people say about YA is that the pace, it kind of, if you're not used to YA, the pace kind of hits you like, whoa, we just keep going. There's no
We
time
really
to
like to
breathe.
hit the ground running in this genre. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you work at a library. I work at a school. Right now I'm working with younger kids, but I work with middle schoolers for a while, and they don't got no patience. And maybe that's why I love reading YA,
Yes.
because I just want to jump into the story and go off and running.
Yeah, it's
So,
also one thing that really draws me to it as well. Just the tension and the fast pace and the excitement. The teen years are a very exciting age and
tumultuous.
yes, tumultuous.
Tumultuous. The amount of drama and emotions that a teenager can go through in an hour. Whew.
Yeah.
Although
Not
now
funny,
that I've
though.
moved down to the younger grades, I'm finding they can do the same thing. So maybe it's just children. So let's just see it one more time, though. I want to just one more time. I want to see we're
Try
gonna
to
make
hold it
this a lot.
still.
So who designed the cover?
It was. So I'm gonna have to look this up. This is bad. Gigi Lau, Mary Luna, and Masij Frollo. I'm saying that wrong. I've only ever seen it written. Basically, a team at my publisher.
So I do want to talk to you about the journey from writing to publication, because this show, we definitely want to let others know that writing isn't easy, but it's super fun and super worthwhile, so everyone should do it. But there's so many other aspects to it that are also challenging. And a lot of people think you write a book, you send it off, and then it's published. But that's not really what happens, is it?
No.
I had a book be published or be accepted for publication, and then it never went forward because the publisher passed away.
I'm sorry.
I haven't had this happen to me, but other authors have said they've had it published and then the press goes under. We've talked on the show before, or even on my other podcast, about how many times you have to submit a book and how many rejections you have to get. And it's millions.
Yeah, it's a lot. Could paper this wall.
I think it's a Stephen King quote. They say you get a stake, like a metal stake, you put it in the ground, and you put all your rejection slips. I guess that's a bit old-fashioned because now we'd get them via email. But
Yes.
You put all your rejection slips on the stake, and when it gets all the way to the top and you can't put any more, you get a bigger stake.
I like that quote. I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah. And there's someone else, and I want to say it's Ray Bradbury, but it's probably not. Where you're not a true writer unless you can paper an entire wall of your house with rejection letters.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just hearing from my producer that you might need to refresh your screen. It happens all the time. Happened with my last guest. Sometimes. Let's see what's happening. There you go.
Better? Okay.
Yeah, that happened with my last guest. Every once in a while, she'd just start to go blurry, and I'd go, "Oh, refresh," and then she came back crisp as day, and now you're back crisp.
It's like at the eye doctor. Better or worse? Better or worse?
Well, now that you're back and you're crisp, can you talk a little bit about how this book went from a manuscript to a book?
Yeah. So basically, my first book with my agent didn't sell. So actually, my agent was with me from the very beginning of this book, right from the brainstorming through all the revisions. So I did, of course, do some revisions with my agent, and she was really lovely and gave me some amazing feedback that I wrote based on. And then we went on submissions. So we sent it out in small batches, and as we heard back, we would revise. And then we got an offer, and we notified the other publishers that I had an offer from a publisher. And the one I went with was Inkyard Press. We really liked the author, and we really liked the team there. And yeah, so it is now with Inkyard Press, and they, of course, did more revisions, many revisions. And as that was happening, they were designing the cover, and they were making the arcs and doing all these amazing things to turn it into an actual book. And just recently, I got my final copies, and I was actually able to hold it in my hands, and that was a lovely feeling.
That is something, isn't it? It's
Yes.
not real until you physically have it, until you're like, ugh.
Yes.
So I've never had an agent. How did you, not that I haven't tried, how did you go about finding an agent?
So I got my agent through querying. I was able to do some of those contests. I forget what they're called now, but I submitted myself, and I got to work with a mentor. And some of those had an agent showcase. Excuse me. And I didn't get an offer from that. So I just kept querying and revising. And eventually my agent, Rebecca, asked for more materials. So in the querying process, typically you send just your submission package in, and then just a couple of pages. So she asked to see the whole thing. And she said she loved it. So she set up what is called the call. I know it's a very creative name. And then she offered representation, and she was just so lovely. Of course, I notified the other agents who had it, but I went with Rebecca because she was just so wonderful, and we really clicked on the call.
And is she from Canada?
No, she's in New York. I find most agents in New York. We do have some in Canada. I don't think we have a lot that do young adult or even young adult fantasy up here. So I do find for most people, if they want an agent, it does mean finding one in the US. And of course, nowadays with technology being what it is, there's not that much of a difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I found that too. Again, don't have an agent, but my publisher, my one was out of High River, and then they moved their, now they're based out of the US, and my other publisher's out of the US. The only real, I have a lot of connections across Canada in terms of authors and editors and things, and I only know one agent, and that would be Naomi Davis out of Bookends.
Yes.
And she does YA, but you've got to imagine if she's kind of the only one in this area that anyone's ever heard of, that's a lot of submissions going her way. But I liked how you talked about how all that process that you went through. My aunt and I are kind of working on a little picture book, and she's like, oh, and then you're going to submit it? And I was like, yeah. She's like, have you heard anything back yet? I'm like, oh, Auntie Liz. The process, right? There's, you go to, you find, at least how I do it. Now you have an agent, so your agent would submit it to publishers for you. So your querying was really finding an agent. Yours was really, this is my manuscript. Are you interested?
Yes. Yeah.
But you are still sending out those emails and trying to find out what those different agents want. On my end, I have to research publishers, and then I have to read their guidelines and say, are they even open to it's called unsolicited manuscripts, meaning I don't have an agent and nobody asked for this. So first I have to find publishers, then I have to make sure they're seeking, interested, willing for unsolicited manuscripts, and then I have to read their guidelines and format everything for how they want it. I assume you had to do that too a little bit?
Yeah, there are some great resources out there nowadays. Like I really like Query Tracker. I think one is called Query Agent. I forget the website. It was Predator versus Editor, and that had, if there were any ones that agents with maybe not the best reputations, that maybe you wanted to be a bit leery of because, they had this and this. that might have happened in the past that maybe was a
They
bit of a
didn't
red
follow
flag.
through, or
Yeah.
they were a little dicey. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing amount of paperwork. Like it's digital. Like I used to, because I'm a bit older than you, I used to have to send it in an envelope with the self-addressed stamped envelope. And because again, all the publishers were in the US, I'd go to the post office and get a special a certificate for a US stamp. Now it's all digital, but then how do you keep track? So there's things like submittable and things like that. But the amount of digital paperwork you're going through, querying here, keeping track of it all, who
Yeah.
sent a no back, who wants it formatted this way. It is a whole job in itself. And again, I don't know if people that aren't writers really understand all the different steps of the process. The writing the book?
That's step one.
Step one. Well, yeah. And that can take I don't know, how long did it take you to write this book the first time? Not counting
This
all
one
the
was
edits.
this one was actually quick. I wrote the first draft in about 4 months and I edited in about the same. So that was the quickest I'd personally ever written a book. But
Yeah.
the one before that, I think it took maybe like 4 years.
I think most authors say on average it takes about a year because they write it and then they take a break and then they do their first edit. So that's a year and that's just writing it. Then there's
Yeah.
querying, which some of my books, maybe a year, other books, 10.
And I mean, even when you have the awful, usually it's about 2 years
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
for the publication.
So this book right here, it got published in 29. Oh, hey. It got published in 2019. It has a sequel, and I'm known now as an in-house author in that they already know me. They've already published one of my books. I'm about to publish the sequel. I wrote the sequel. Obviously, I'm going to go with the same publisher.
Yeah.
And they are likely to accept it because they know I don't totally suck.
You don't suck at all, so.
But that's how the in-house author. I don't have to go through that slush pile and wait for someone to find it and say this is good. It still took a year for my publisher who said, yeah, we like you. We're going to keep going with it. It still took a year for it to get onto his editing plate.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? He
Publishing
had,
is slow.
So I think it's really important for, writers and non-writers to know how long this process takes. So we write it, that's a year. Querying can take years. My Imagine series, I think that I queried around for like 10. I was about to give up on it, and then I got an offer. Okay, so what's the next step? You finally you had a subset because your agent has to find a publisher, but once you have an agent, you're more likely to find a publisher. So then what happens?
Yeah, so I got the publication with Inkyard, and it was funny. I sometimes thought of that as like, the final step. I was almost there, but no, that's kind of when that 2 year, and it can go faster, but in general, 2 years start. So yeah, in that time, you of course do edits with your publisher. So typically there's the 3 rounds, and each round might have more than one pass through. So there's a big developmental edit, and then you move to the line edit, and then you move to the copy edit. After that, you have the past pages where it, actually looks like a book, except in digital format. Yeah. At the same time, the publisher is doing your cover up, and they're asking for your feedback on the cover. Another important part, especially in this day and age, is that's sort of the time where you also want to be trying to get on social media, finding fellow authors, finding maybe people who in the future might buy your book, finding your writing community. So, for example, I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and I really enjoy those platforms. So, yeah, I've been trying to build up my marketing. This close to debut, I'm, of course, doing things like interviews. I ordered some cool swag to go with my book. I don't have it at the moment, but I ordered things like pins and bookmarks and just fun things. I'm doing a pre-order campaign. If you pre-order my book, you get a pre-order short story. So that was fun to do. So it's a lot, but I've really enjoyed the different steps in the process.
It is a lot. And so from like writing to like print, that like 4 or 5 years. Do you ever find, and this has happened to me because I work on a few projects at the same time, when you're doing the interviews, it's been so long since you wrote it, when they ask you questions, or you're like, I can't really remember? Has that ever happened?
I know the question, where did your idea come from? Like, I think that's how I got my idea, but I honestly don't know anymore. Like, that's how I remember it. But now I'm like, did that actually happen? Or like, am I misremembering? It's just been so long. I'm like, I think that's where it came from.
I think so, maybe. Yeah. So the editing. So first they go through content. So basically what that means to people that don't know is the basically that plot. Is the basic plot good? Don't have a character come back to life if you killed them in the last chapter. Been there, done that.
Unless it's a zombie book.
Yeah. A lot is the pacing off. Like you might have a great scene and it's so beautiful, but they're like, it slowed down the pace, especially in YA. Our characters, yeah, so out you go. Characters, are you hitting the right emotional points? And are they realistic and yet empathetic? So that's just editing round one. And then they're looking at, well, the next two kind of blur for me because they're the two I struggle with and I don't really like and I get really grumpy. But
we all have those.
Yeah. This is me writing. This is me editing. It's just not, it's important and I'm actually good at it, but it's just not as much fun figuring out where that apostrophe should be, or like you spend hours taking out a line and then putting it back in and then taking out the line and putting it back in.
And then adding a word and then taking that word out.
Are you good at edits? Are you?
I'm kind of the same with you. I like kind of the bigger edits, but as soon as it gets to sort of the line edits, I wish I was back doing the bigger edits again. But at the same time, once I'm done a line edit, I can tell it's so much better that I appreciate having done the work.
Yeah. And then you read it back and you're like, I wrote this?
It's like, oh, it actually sounds kind of okay now.
Yeah. And I know that there are a small group of people that have antagonistic relationships with editors, but I do not.
Yeah, me neither.
I love my editors. I live for my I cannot survive without my edit, and the only time I've ever disagreed with an editor is just because I write series. So sometimes they'll say you don't need this and I'm like, I kind of do because it's going to be in the next book.
Yeah, you don't want to write yourself into a corner.
Yeah, but other than that, I don't understand people that don't like their editors. Maybe they haven't found the right one, and that could be it. But I have Tasia Morgan. I just got to do a plug for her. She's my editor. And then also at Foundations Books, Steve Soderquist, who's also my publisher. And then now we're on to the marketing part. And if you're, it's kind of changed over the years in that you could just market the book once it came out. But now they say you should start your website and start gaining fans at the same time you start writing it, which is kind of surreal. It's not something I did, but of course, I'm a little older and the internet was kind of new when I started writing. But the idea that you should be getting fans while you write like the first pages, seems odd to me. Maybe once you're editing, I don't know. And so you did all your social media stuff. Was it once it got contracted, or was it when you were still writing?
I want to say I started out when I got my agent, so it would have been even before the writing of this book, when I was on sub with the book I signed with. So yeah, it was before I even started writing this book. But I do find it gets a lot easier when you do have a book upcoming, because then you sort of have that thing that kind of connects you to the community, and that, actually has something that somebody might want to read. You have a tangible thing, which I found was a bit easier.
Yeah. Content. It's hard to always be coming up with content. I'm always being pushed to have more content and things, but I work and I have a child, and there's a lot of waiting, as we've talked about for like the last 20 minutes, that I have a book coming could mean 4 years from now.
Yeah.
So it's hard. That's why I post a lot of writing memes and jokes.
I love memes. And I find especially for like the teen audience, they also change like social media channels a lot. Like TikTok's the big one right now. I'm not on TikTok, but that's where a lot of teens are. So
yes,
that's also an added level that you kind of want to be where your audience is. And for young adults, that's teens. But
ironically,
I'm no longer that young thing I once was.
Yeah, we're no longer teens. But ironically, and you would know this because you work at a library, the biggest population of YA readers, it's not kids, it's
adults.
Middle-aged women, yeah. It's me. I'm your audience.
Which, yes, we do, of course, like, as a writer, you love all of your audience, but, of course, teens tend to have a special place in the heart for young adult writers, so you do want to also go where they are.
So, in case I forget it later, because I don't want to, I have still more questions for you, and we're not signing off yet, but in case I forget, what are your Twitter and your Instagram and all those handles? Just we'll say them again at the end.
A Victorian Tale.
Say it again.
At A Victorian Tale.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's Instagram and Twitter. It's the
same handle.
And are you on Facebook?
No, not on Facebook.
Not on Facebook.
I just find the teens aren't there, so I'm not there.
No, but their moms are. That's where
I'm true, yes. I guess if the main audience is, maybe I should be on Facebook.
It's starting to come back. Some of my Facebook is starting to come back. I am not on Snapchat yet, but I put it on my phone. I just haven't opened it, but I have it on my phone. I don't know. I just don't have that kind of time.
I never got into Snapchat. Maybe I should try it out, but
no. And the new one is what's the new one called? I'm totally blanking. It's not going to come to me. And my niece.
That's how uncool I am. I don't even know what it is.
My niece, she's 10, and she got one of those light things for Christmas so she could take videos and things for. It's just not coming. No. I wish this had live comments because someone would be like, we're talking about this, but we're not. So I have a couple more questions. Okay. So what is your writing process or your writing style? And in case you don't exactly know what I mean, I'll explain mine. I write in very short bursts because I only have so much time in a day. And I tend to put a tiara on so that the other people in my house know that I'm writing and not doing report cards.
That's so smart.
They can interrupt me when I'm doing report cards. They can't interrupt me when I'm writing. And I write more in the summer, obviously, because I'm a teacher. So what about you? Are you one of those people that can sit for 4 hours and write straight?
Yes, I'm kind of the opposite of you. If I don't have that kind of long period, I'd rather be doing things like marketing or other things that don't use as much. Well, they do use as much attention, but I guess not as much focused attention. Like you can send a tweet off in a couple of minutes. Well, I really like having that long span to actually write because I do find it kind of takes about 15 minutes or so for me to kind of go into the zone. So I like having at least that much time so that I can really get into a project and feel like I'm making some good headway. And I'm lucky enough to, like not always, but have enough of those longer periods of writing that I can do that.
Wow, we are the exact opposite. I think 4 hours of writing, my back would hurt, my head would hurt. But I do
have kind of the max I can do at one sitting, and after that, my brain is just tired, and I have to go do something else.
I need to daydream. I need to go for a drive or go for a walk or just kind of sit, and then I daydream up a scene, and then I can get it out pretty quick. So I'll write for like 45 minutes to an hour, and then I have to go off and daydream again. So I can write 4 hours in a day, but not all in one sitting. It would be
It's
scattered
dog walking for me.
Yeah.
When I need the break, I go for a dog walk and let the ideas percolate for a bit.
That's the word I use. I say I gotta let it percolate.
But yes, I am a plotter all the way. I need a plan going into first draft. I don't know how people who don't have an outline do it. I know there's amazing writers who do it, and I just can't.
So for anyone watching, we often as writers, we get the question, are you a plotter or a pantser? Not a pantser but a plotter is someone who really structures their book, and they know every chapter and they have it all outlined, whether in their head or
cue cards.
Oh, nice. And then there's the pantser who just has an idea and they sit down and they start writing.
Which I can do.
I am a hybrid in that I know how the book's going to begin. I know how the book is going to end. I often even know how the series is going to end. I kind of know a vague idea of the chapters, but then as I write, it kind of morphs and changes and I go with it, because my characters are like rabid squirrels who do their own thing, and then I go, well, that was a better idea anyway. So I couldn't be a full pantser. I couldn't be a full like free bird, because I would never end up where I'm meant to be. But my plan changes, and a lot of it I'm like, okay, let's put my character in this tunnel and let's find out what creature's going to come out. And someone like you would know going into that chapter exactly what creature's coming at them. And I'm like, I don't know, it's dark and it's furry. Oh, it's this. But there's no right or wrong. It's just different writing styles, and it's just a question that every author gets asked.
Yep, it's just what's right or wrong for you personally.
Yes. You would not survive as a free bird, and
no.
I could do it your way, but it would all just change. And then my best friend always sits and brainstorms with me. Hi, Rachel. And we'll plan out like what's going to happen. And then I'll send her the draft as I'm writing. And people always ask her, they're like, well, why would you read it? You just planned it with her. You know what's going to happen. And she's like, it has never stayed the same. Ever. Ever.
Ever.
But because I know where I'm going, it's okay. We'll get there. Interesting. So we're very different, but really it doesn't matter. And so for any want to be writers, burgeoning writers, soon to be writers, doesn't matter.
Yep.
Everybody writes different.
Stick with what works for you.
And it might take some experimentation.
Yeah. Because I think my first couple of novels, like I did pants, and that's how I found out that really wasn't for me.
I wrote poetry for a good 12 years, and people kept saying they're too long, they're too wordy, they're too prosy. And then I was like, I guess I'm a novelist.
I admire poets so much. It's just one form that I just like fundamentally don't understand. I don't know how to do.
It's something I wanted to do and I wanted to be good at, and I am not. And that's just a message that I send out a lot when talking to writers and students, is that you might be a writer, but it might not be your genre or your format. Apparently poetry is not for me.
I
short
can
stories,
and that's about it.
I'm really trying. Short stories, that's a goal for me. And I want to try and get better. And so far I've made it from book to novella. And maybe eventually we'll get to short story. And so it's okay to set goals and try new things, but it's also okay as an author to say, that's just not me. That's just not. I could not write. What's something you couldn't write? I'm
Poems.
Western.
Oh,
Poems.
yes.
Westerns.
Yeah, I don't think I could write a Western. I'm really squeamish, so I don't think I could write anything like a horror or even a thriller is kind of pushing it for me. So I'm definitely on the kind of happier, lighter side, even in fantasy.
Yeah, I don't know about a whole horror. I don't think my books and stories are dark, but I've been told there's some darkness in there. I don't know if I could ever write a romance. I put romantic elements in my books, but it's more like a side story but to focus the entire book on romance, I think I'm too cynical.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how it would turn out. And I definitely couldn't describe the stuff.
The stuff.
It would all be off the page, fade to black. They go in the bedroom, and then I'd pick up the next morning.
And I do admire you for writing a picture book. I don't think I could ever do that. Like, I would just find that so difficult. Like, they're at such a fun age, kids that age, but a picture book, like, you get so few words to work with, and you have to be, like, so good with every word, and I don't think I would be able to do that.
Well, we'll see how successful I am at it. Obviously, I don't draw, so I can't do that. And it's really become something I'm interested in, probably because my daughter is 4, and I've switched to the younger grades, right? Middle school was like 11 years of my life, but now I work with, the grade 1s and 2s. So it's become an interest of mine. Now, I have some picture book manuscripts, but none have come out yet. Hopefully in 2021, the first one will. But we'll have to see whether I'm good at it versus it's just an interest. But that's the joy of writing, and just try things. And some things are colossal failures. And some
you have to be okay with failing in this profession.
Yeah, I mean, my Imagine series, I'm very proud of it. There's 3 books in it. I'm eventually somehow going to get to the 4th. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and it's not my best writing, but it was my first book, the first one, Imagine, and I'm really proud of it. And, had I given up then and said it's just getting okay reviews, and then I wouldn't have my I wouldn't have this one, which won 2 awards so far, right? And so, you have 1 book, and you should be very proud. But who knows what it'll be down the road? You might have 10 books, and they're all a different genre, or who knows what they could be. So writing's pretty cool.
Yes.
There's the summary of this entire episode.
Yeah.
Writing
is
equals cool. We just wrap up there.
That's it.
Writing's
That's
cool.
all.
Editing's hard. Writing's cool. Marketing takes a long time.
Yes.
That's our thesis.
Everything up. It's all good now.
Yeah. All right. But that's not what everyone wants to know about you. They want to know what other creative passions you have, because authors tend to also foray into other creative pastimes. I dance. If I had time, I would act. Although my husband would agree, I act dramatic 24/7. I color a lot. I have a 4-year-old, so So we did mention earlier that you crochet.
Yes.
Are you really good?
Yeah, I'm a big crafter, so I crochet mostly cute little dolls, and I make little owls and little kitty cats. I quilt. I haven't done a lot of quilting, but I've done a couple of projects. I felt. I've gone into felting. Felting is fun.
What's
so
felting?
If you've never, so basically, you take some wool roving, and you have a bob needle, and you just poke it into the wool, and the bobs catch the fibers and bind them together. And so you go from something that's quite, big, I guess, and then it just gets more compact as you poke it. But I'm also a very awkward person, so I do poke my fingers a lot with the needle, because of course you do it quite fast. But I really like it because you can really shape the wool as you're felting it, and it's just really fun, and you can make cute little creatures really easily. So That's actually a lot of fun. I would suggest trying it if
I'm gonna have to Google that.
yes.
I'm not. Apparently I had to learn my skills young because I can embroider, I can cross stitch, I can do needlepoint, and I can do all that because I learned when I was really young. But I tried to learn to crochet when I was like 22, and my mom tried to teach me on Christmas morning, and she kicked me and my cousin Penny, and she kicked me out of lessons. She was so frustrated with me. On Christmas Day.
On Christmas
right?
Day.
I got kicked out of crocheting lessons by my own mother. And just trying to pick up those skills later on. I appear to have no talent. My sister's going to try and teach me, but it might not go well. But learning them young, I had no problem with. I don't know, maybe. I don't know.
I did just also pick up cross stitch. I do enjoy cross stitching.
That's good. Do you paint or draw or anything? No.
I wish I could paint and draw.
Me too.
I'm not that type of artistic. I can do stick figures.
But is it important to you to have those creative outlets that aren't necessarily writing?
Yes, very important. They just give me space and time to think, kind of, or time to not think away from my writing projects.
That's right. Well,
Sometimes
and I guess we can't.
think.
Yeah. We can't write 24/7 and we can't market and edit. So, where can people go if they want this wonderful book?
Wherever books are sold.
Nice. You've always wanted to say that line, haven't you?
Especially since this is for Lethbridge writers. Of course, we have our new bookstore, Analog Books, and it's an amazing bookstore. So, of course, I mean, you can't get it there yet because it's not released till February 2nd, but after February 2nd, you could get it there. And besides that, Chapters, your local independent bookstore if you're not in Lethbridge and you're in a different area. Online, most places.
Amazon, I'm assuming?
Yep. Amazon.
And what about pre-orders? Can they go order it now even if it's not released yet?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want the pre-order short story, just go to my website and you just fill out a little form, and then on the book's release date, you can also get the pre-order short story.
Nice. Is the short story connected to the book? Like, is it like a bonus scene, or is it something totally different?
So, Karis, who of course works at the scriptorium, has a best friend there. His name is Dane, and it's from Dane's point of view. Maybe 4 years before the book starts. Is that right? Before the book starts.
Nice. Okay. Well, yeah, readers love extra things, so of course they're going to dive in and try and get that. And then what's coming in the future for you?
Sorry. Grab a drink of water. So I did sell my next book. It's called Silver in the Mist. It is not related to this Golden Flame, despite having sort of a metal in the name and then something kind of natural earthy in it.
So totally different.
Totally different.
Totally different.
It's set on a continent with dying magic that's divided between two countries. So the main character is a spy, and she's sent across the border to capture a magical castor and bring her back to her own country. But of course, things do not go as planned.
So is it more that fantasy than the sci-fi?
Yes, this one's, I would put it decidedly in the fantasy. I mean, this Golden Flame really is, except for the automatons, but Silver in the Mist is definitely fantasy through and through.
Nice. We write very similar very similar material, very similar genre. We'll have to pair up somehow and write. You know how authors, I've always seen that authors, like, they work together, and I'm like, what? That's a thing? Yeah. And I've always wanted to. I get to interview on Quill and Ink in, I think, 2 weeks. Iris and Roy Johansson, their mother and son.
Ooh.
I was like, aww. And I'm very curious to see how that works. The only other writing kind of pair I know is from here in Lethbridge. Megan and Leslie, They go by VS
Lasan,
Sam.
I think.
VF Sam?
Yeah, VF Lasan, I think.
Uh-oh. I got one of their books somewhere. Hold on. No, they write short stories and they work together. And I've always wanted to know how that works. And if I've always wanted to know if I'm mature enough to collaborate or if I would be like stubborn. I hope
Yeah, like I
not.
love my editors, but it would definitely be a different process actually writing with somebody like every step of the way.
Yeah, but there's also there was a fantasy book that came out 20 years ago. It was like three really big female fantasy authors, like Mercedes Lackey and two others, and they wrote a book. But what they did, the beginning, kind of they wrote together, and the end they kind of wrote together, but then they took three different characters in the
Oh,
middle and they wrote their journey. So a lot of it there was that independently. They could do what they wanted with their own characters. So maybe we could do something like that.
I have seen authors do that. Like if there's two POVs, like each author takes one.
All right. So now all we have to do is think of an idea.
Yeah.
And then you and I can write a book together. Your mom would be so happy.
And maybe one day you can do it and be a pairing with your daughter. Aww.
Everything's about superheroes with her, so
Sweet.
we'll have to see.
Superheroes are awesome.
We'll have to see. Yeah, and then I guess I would have to find the time to write it.
Time. Especially this
You know.
year. What is time? I guess
So-
last year now. What is time?
So that book just got picked up, like it just got sold to a publisher. And then are you writing, like, are you coming up with more projects or are you just right now focusing on those two?
Yes, yeah. So, marketing the one and writing the other. It's wonderful to be writing again and editing again. I feel like once this Golden Flame was kind of past the editing stage, I haven't done it in a while. So, it's nice getting back to the actual act of writing and not, marketing. As much as I love that, it will never be my first love.
No, it's something that you have to do versus something that you want to do. There's aspects of it that are fun, talking to different people, things like that. But
I mean, meeting
Yeah.
the community and meeting the readers is just so amazing, and that really only happens through kind of those marketing initiatives. So that's a really special part of it, definitely. But
so have you got feedback? Like it's not out yet, but I'm sure you've nudged a copy to your mom or your sister or something. Have you got
yeah,
or early
just
reviews?
recently because they got the final copies. I mean, the ARCs did go out, so I do have reviews, but I've sort of made it a rule that I do not look at reviews because I've heard horror stories of reviews. So I do have some of my family and my friends, when they see a good one, they'll sort of take the really good quotes from it just to show me. But yes, I haven't been actively reading reviews. No. Because at this
Yeah, I
point, you can't change the book. You've done your job as the author. You've done the best work you could do as the author, and now it's out of your hands. So,
I had a really interesting review on on the Imagine series where this someone was saying, it doesn't always get the best reviews, but what I think people don't understand is that this is a kid's book. They kept saying like, why aren't the characters more mature and why isn't this happening? She's like, does anyone else know this is YA? She's like, and so you have to take, and I was like, yeah, it's YA, people.
yeah.
My character is 15, doesn't even have a driver's license, and you want her to have like high vocabulary and mature reactions to situations. It's not going to happen. And so all reviews you have to take with a grain of salt. I mean, I've never read Stephen King. Never. I'm going to try. But it's just not any stories that interest me. Does that mean he's a bad writer? No. Does that mean if he got a review from me, he should cry? No. It just means I don't like horror.
Yes, I'm the same. I'm sorry, I'm just too squeamish to read Stephen King.
So, I mean, there's books that are classics that have been adored for centuries that Like, I don't like Wuthering Heights.
Oh, I don't like Wuthering Heights. I'm sorry, Wuthering Heights. I don't like you.
So reviews are hard if they're bad, but you can also look at it as I was just not that person's cup of tea.
Yeah. And I really do think ultimately reviews are for readers. Like, they're not for the author. Like,
no,
the editors are for the authors to kind of give us that editorial feedback, but reviews are really for the readers.
Yeah, like if you like this book, you might like this, or I didn't enjoy this because of this. And another reader can pick it up and say, but I do like that kind of thing, you know? So it's all fine.
Yeah.
The thing though is you need reviews. And that's the tricky part, because Amazon won't promote your book unless you have 50 reviews. And trying to get reviews and things like that it's tricky.
It is one of the best ways, readers can support authors by leaving that review. And
I always come from writing and things from a background of teaching, and you are coming from like the librarian kind of aspect of it. So you would probably know more about reviews and things like that, and how to recommend and market a book than I ever would.
We definitely, do get we get professional reviews, but even, different patrons, like hearing why a patron loved a book is wonderful, because then we can pass that on to other patrons who might like that book as well.
There you go. All right. So we've definitely covered a lot. I don't know if we made it a whole hour, but we covered a lot of stuff. Writing good, editing hard, marketing important. YA for the win.
Woo!
Right.
Writing is cool.
Writing is cool. So just before we go, I want to, of course, thank Jess TV, who created and sponsored this wonderful show. I want to thank Emily for being guest number 2 on episode number 2 of this show. And we want you to, of course, hold your book up one last time. This golden flame. I keep saying the golden flame, but this is a better title. And it's from I forgot already. Ink Yard Sorry, Ink Yard Press. Ink Yard Press. And pre-orders are on now, and they get the free short story if they order now, and soon it will be in Analog Books in Lethbridge, right? Yeah. Or it is there now? Soon?
No, not yet. February 2nd.
February 2nd. Okay.
2 weeks.
Gotta talk to them Analog Books. Gotta meet those people. Get some of my books in there.
Yeah. It's an amazing bookstore, and they have the cutest cat. So cute.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on my show on a Saturday night. Not like you had other places to go, because we're all in lockdown.
During these times, so many places to go.
Thank you very much. So just a reminder, this is Inside the Author. I'm Jenna Green. You can find me at my house and pretty much nowhere else. No, you can find me on Twitter, J Green, Green with an E on the end, J Green Writes. JennaGreen.ca. I'm through Champagne Books and Foundation Books. Also the Quill and Ink podcast, podcast for book lovers. That's on Spotify and SoundCloud and YouTube and all the other channels. It is late on a Saturday night. That is all my brain has for me today. So I'm sure you can find me other places, but I can't remember them. A great salute to YA tonight, and we learned a lot. Threw a lot of words out at the audience, all this querying and arcs and all sorts. So I hope you had fun, Emily.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Hope this gets you some sales. Let's all buy your book. And then we'll get together and we'll write a new one.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else you want to say before we go?
No, just have a good night, everyone, and thank you again.
Awesome. All right. Bye.
Bye.